500 years before the birth of Jesus, a God-realized being named Lao Tzu in ancient China dictated 81 verses, which are regarded by many as the ultimate commentary on the nature of our existence. This classic text of these verses, called the Tao Te Ching, or the Great Way, offers advice and guidance that is balanced, moral, spiritual, and always concerned with working for the good. I have reviewed hundreds of translations of the Tao Te Ching. In this book, I have written 81 distinct essays on how to apply the ancient wisdom of Lao Tzu to today's modern world. This work contains all 81 verses of the Tao, compiled from my researching of 10 of the most well-respected translations of this text, which has survived for more than 25 centuries. Each of the 81 chapters is designed for actually living the Tao, or the Great Way, today, and concludes with a section called Do the Tao Now. I spent an entire year reading, researching, and meditating on Lao Tzu's messages, practicing them each day, and ultimately writing down these insights as I felt Lao Tzu wanted you to know them. This is a work to be read slowly, one verse a day. As I say, this is a book that will forever change the way you look at your life. And the result will be that you'll live in a new world aligned with nature. Writing this book changed me forever. I now live in accord with the natural world and feel the greatest sense of peace I've ever experienced. I'm so proud to present this interpretation of the Tao Te Ching and offer you the same opportunity for change that it has brought to me. Change your thoughts, change your life. Living the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching. Preface. Progress is important without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. George Bernard Shaw. Change your thoughts, change your life is the end product of my year-long journey of research, contemplation, and application of the Tao Te Ching, a book of wisdom that's been translated more than any volume in the world, with the exception of the Bible. Many scholars consider this Chinese classic the ultimate discourse on the nature of existence, and it continues to be a valuable resource for achieving a way of life that guarantees integrity, joy, peace, and balance. I recently read about someone who overcame life-threatening addictive behaviors by reading and rereading the 81 verses of this ancient text. Just imagine, in fewer than 100 short pages, it describes a way of living that's balanced, moral, and spiritual, and that works for all facets of life on earth. Legend tells us that the Tao Te Ching was authored by Lao Tzu, a prophet who was also the keeper of the imperial archives in the ancient capital of Luoyang. Seeing the continual decay during a period of warring states, Lao Tzu decided to ride westward into the desert. At what is called the Hangku Pass, a gatekeeper named Yin Si, knowing of Lao Tzu's reputation for being a man of wisdom, begged him to record the essence of his teachings. Thus, the Tao Te Ching was born out of 5,000 Chinese characters. In all of my reading on the origins of the Tao Te Ching, I never found a definitive historical record of its writing. Yet today, it survives in thousands of versions in virtually every language. In fact, after reading this classic text one morning and then taking in a different interpretation that same afternoon, I was hooked. I ordered more translations, 5 of which were quite old and 5 of which were more modern. Since neither Lao Tzu nor the origins of his verses are historically certain, I was fascinated by the different ways the 5,000 characters were interpreted by scholars in the editions that I studied, especially when you consider that many of these ancient Chinese symbols are no longer in use and invite differing translations themselves. I then felt called upon to write an essay for each verse that showed its valuable wisdom applied to the 21st century. From those 10 translations I'd gone over, I pieced together the 81 passages in Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, based on how they resonated with me. This book is my personal interpretation of the Tao Te Ching, each verse of which gave me an insight into life and nature. As you read on, know that these pages were pasted together from what I personally felt were the most useful aspects of those 10 different translations I studied, and I apologize for any exclusions or if the inclusions don't seem to be a perfect fit. One of the many gifts of the Tao Te Ching is its mind-stretching quality, especially in the way that Lao Tzu uses irony and paradox to get you to look at life. If you think that being forceful is the appropriate response, Lao Tzu urges you to see the value in being humble. If action seems called for, he asks you to consider non-action. If you feel that grasping will help you acquire what you need or want, he counsels you to let go and be patient. And just what is this thing called the Tao, spelled T-A-O? As we're told in the first verse, to name it is to lose it. So here's the best that I can come up with. The Tao is the supreme reality, an all-pervasive source of everything. The Tao never begins or ends, does nothing, and yet animates everything in the world of form and boundaries, which is called the world of the 10,000 things by Lao Tzu. Commentaries on the Tao Te Ching generally interpret Tao, T-A-O, as the way, T-E, as the shape and power, that is, how the Tao manifests, and Ching as book. Every translation I read referred to the Tao as the way with a capital W, and T-E, as adding light or color to the way. Well, as I look at the name I've carried with me for over 66 years, Wayne Dyer, I realize what may have attracted me to studying and writing these essays. As you can see, the first three letters of my name make up the word way, while a Dyer, D-Y-E-R, is one who adds light or color. It's no wonder why I've been so totally involved in reading, writing, interpreting, and most significantly, putting into practice these 81 verses in my own life. In the Wisdom of China and India, Dr. Lin Yutang states, quote, "If there is one book in the whole of Oriental literature which should be read above all others, it is, in my opinion, Lao Tzu's book of Tao. It is one of the profoundest books in the world's philosophy," unquote. As you read Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, you're going to find your way through Lao Tzu's mystical and practical philosophy, along with the joy of applying it to your life in today's modern world. Writing this book was a complete surrender to ideas that didn't always seem to fit a linear, rational approach. And it has changed me in a way that's like the Tao itself, unexplainable and unnameable. Once I knew that I'd be spending a year on this project, its creation came about in the following way, which I have journaled here for you. I awake before 4 a.m., I meditate, consume juices and supplements, and enter my sacred writing space. On a table, I have found some framed drawings of Lao Tzu. In one, he's clad in simple robes. In another, he's standing with a staff. And in a third, he's astride an ox. I ease into my work and read one verse of the Tao Te Ching, letting the words stay with me and inviting the forces of both the outer and the inner life to inform me. Some of the passages contain ideas that seem to be directed to political leaders. Yet in all cases, I keep the average reader in mind. In other words, I seek the wisdom for everyone, not just for those in positions of government or business. I jot down a few notes, and for the next 3 days, I think about what Lao Tzu is offering. I invite the Tao to be with me throughout the day in all my activities as a background to the title of this book. Change your thoughts, Wayne, I tell myself, and watch how your life changes. And my thoughts do change. I feel the Tao with me, always there, always doing nothing, and always leaving absolutely nothing undone. As I'm now seeing, with a capital S, the landscape looks different. The people I see are godly creations who are ignoring their own nature, or even more poignantly, needily interfering in the affairs of others. I have a different perspective now. I feel more peaceful and patient. I keep being reminded of the cyclical nature of the world of the 10,000 things, and have powerful insights that change what I see. I know that we humans are like the rest of the natural world, and that sadness, fear, frustration, or any troubling feeling, they can't last. Nature doesn't create a storm that never ends. Within misfortune, good fortune hides. Following my days of thinking and then applying the wisdom of a particular verse, I look into the eyes of Lao Tzu's picture in the early morning, and I wonder, what did you mean? How does this apply here today to anyone who might want to live according to these majestic teachings? What happens next is just mind-blowing. It's that simple. Through the ages, through the atmosphere, through my purple pen and onto the page flows what I can only call automatic writing. I know I don't own it. I know I can't touch it, feel it, see it, or even name it. But the words arrive in the world of the 10,000 things. I'm grateful, bewildered, astonished, and overjoyed. The next day, I begin another 4-day adventure with this wisdom a Chinese master recorded 2,500 years ago, feeling so blessed, honored, and completely awestruck by the profound impact these words have on me. It's my vision that in this 21st century, our world must recruit future leaders who are steeped in the importance of Lao Tzu's work. Our survival may depend on understanding that the concepts of enemy and war can cease to exist through living Tao-centered lives. Government will need to retreat from regulating our personal lives, overly taxing our incomes, and invading our privacy. Yet the lessons and the truths of the Tao must be discovered and applied by individuals. In this way, it can bring you to the enormous wonder of your own being. Yes, you are the Tao at work. Your being came from and will return to non-being. So for maximum enjoyment and benefit, make listening to this book a personal journey. First, listen to one of the passages of the Tao Te Ching and the essay that follows it. Next, spend some time applying it, changing the way you've been conditioned to think, and letting yourself open up to a new way of conceptualizing these ideas. Finally, individualize the verse by writing, recording, drawing, or expressing yourself in whatever way you're called to, and move on to the next verse with a rhythm that suits your nature. The following is from 365 Tao, Daily Meditations by Den Ming Dao, which I love to turn to each day. Listen to this expert and see the Tao coming alive in you. Quote, if you spend a long period of time in study and self-cultivation, you will enter Tao. By doing so, you also enter a world of extraordinary perceptions. You experience unimaginable things, receive thoughts and learning as if from nowhere, perceive things that could be classified as prescient. Yet if you try to communicate what you experience, there is no one to understand you. No one will believe you. The more you walk this road, the farther you are from the ordinary ways of society. You may see the truth, but you will find that people would rather listen to politicians and performers and charlatans. If you are known as a follower of Tao, people may seek you out, but they're seldom the ones who will truly understand Tao. They are people who would exploit Tao as a crutch. To speak to them of the wonders you have seen is often to engage in a futile bout of miscommunication. That is why it is said that those who know do not speak. Why not simply stay quiet? Enjoy Tao as you will. Let others think you're dumb. Inside yourself, you will know the joy of Tao's mysteries. If you meet someone who can profit by your experience, you should share. But if you're merely a wanderer in a crowd of strangers, it is wisdom to be silent. End of quote. Perhaps the overriding message of the Tao Te Ching is to learn how to luxuriate in the simplicity of what you're being told throughout this ancient sacred text. As you put its ideas into practice, you'll discover how profound it all is. But then you'll find yourself startled by its simplicity and its naturalness. The advice of this ancient master is so easy to apply that you mustn't try to complicate it. Simply allow yourself to stay in harmony with your nature, which can be trusted if you just listen and act accordingly. I hope that you'll feel joyously in love with Lao Tzu and his wondrous Tao Te Ching, and that you'll add your light and color to the great way. I offer you my love, along with my commitment to a Tao-centered world. I can think of no greater vision for you, for our planet, or for our universe. Of birds I know that they have wings to fly with, of fish that they have fins to swim with, of wild beasts that they have feet to run with. For feet there are traps, for fins nets, for wings arrows. But who knows how dragons surmount wind and cloud into heaven? This day I have seen Lao Tzu, and he is a dragon. This is from The Way of Life According to Lao Tzu, translated by Witter Bynner back in the 1940s. And that quote you just heard is attributed to Confucius after he visited the elder Lao Tzu to seek advice on points of ceremonial etiquette. First verse of the Tao Te Ching, quote, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao is both named and nameless. As nameless, it is the origin of all things. As named, it is the mother of 10,000 things. Ever desireless, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one sees only the manifestations. And the mystery itself is the doorway to all understanding. Unquote. Living the mystery. In this opening verse of the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu tells us that the Tao is both named and nameless. This sounds paradoxical to our Western intellect, and it is. Paradoxical thinking is embedded in Eastern concepts such as yin and yang, or the feminine and the masculine, and where things are comfortably described as both this and that. We in the West, by contrast, tend to view opposites as incompatible concepts that contradict each other. Yet this book is asking that we change our ingrained ways of thinking and see how our lives change as a result. The Tao is an unknowable, unseeable realm where everything originates, while at the same time the Tao is invisibly within everything. When we desire to see this invisibleness, this mystery, we attempt to define it in terms of the outer world of form, what Lao Tzu calls the 10,000 things. He counsels us that letting go of trying to see the mystery will actually allow us to see it. Or as I like to think of it, let go and let God. But how can we do that? One way is to permit ourselves to practice more paradoxical thinking by recognizing that desiring, or wanting, and desireless, allowing, are different and the same, rather like the mysterious ends of a continuum. Desiring is the physical expression of creating conditions that allow us to be receptive. That is, it's in the world preparation for receiving. According to Lao Tzu, wanting to know or see the mystery of the Tao will reveal evidence of it in a variety of manifestations, but not the mystery itself. But this isn't a dead end. From this ground of desiring, the flowering of the mysterious Tao grows. It's as if wanting transforms into effortless allowing. Desiring, one sees the manifestations. Desireless, one can see the mystery itself. When we tune into what Lao Tzu is telling us, it becomes readily apparent that our world produces abundant examples of this paradoxical process. Think of gardening and desiring those luscious homegrown tomatoes or spring daffodils. Allowing them to grow is ultimately what happens. Now think of the things in life that involve wanting and how they differ from allowing. Wanting to go to sleep, for instance, rather than going to sleep. Wanting to diet rather than dieting. Wanting to love rather than loving. In this reference to the Tao, desireless means trusting, permitting, and allowing. Desire is both the beginning and the ground of desirelessness. Yet wanting is also the beginning and the ground of allowing. They are the same, and they are different. Pay attention to times when you can feel in your body where you are on the continuum between desiring and allowing, or trying and doing. Trying to play the piano, drive the car, or ride the bicycle is the same as and different from actually playing the piano, driving the car, and riding the bicycle. Once these outer world activities are desired and learned, there's a time when allowing is what you do. The point here is to recognize the difference in your body between trying and allowing, and to then become aware of the effortless sensation of the latter. This practice will also lead to a greater awareness of the invisible mystery and the 10,000 things which are the visible phenomenon of our world. The 10,000 things that Lao Tzu refers to represent the categorized, classified, and scientifically named objects of the earth, which help us to communicate and identify what we're talking and thinking about. Yet for all our technological expertise and scientific categorization, we can never truly create a human eye or liver or even a grain of wheat for that matter. Each of these things, along with the remainder that comprise the known or named world, emerge from the mystery, the eternal Tao. Just as the world is not its named parts, we're not exclusively the skin, bone, and rivers of fluids that we're physically made of. We too are the eternal Tao, invisibly animating our tongues to speak, our ears to hear, our eyes to see and experience the manifest and the mystery. Consciously allowing this nameless mystery is ultimately the way to practice the Tao. Does this mean putting yourself in harm's way? Of course not. Does that mean trusting the mystery at the moment you're being mugged or mistreated? Probably not. Does it mean never trying to change things? No. It does mean cultivating a practice of being in the mystery and allowing it to flow through you unimpeded. It means permitting the paradox of being in form at the same time that you allow the mystery to unfold. Do the Tao. Find your personal way of living in the mystery. As Lao Tzu says in this first verse, and the mystery itself is the doorway to all understanding. Here's my advice for translating this passage into daily practice in this 21st century. First and foremost, enjoy the mystery. Let the world unfold without always attempting to figure it all out. Let relationships just be. For example, since everything is going to stretch out in divine order, don't try so hard to make something work. Simply allow. Don't always toil at trying to understand your mate or your children or your parents or your boss or anyone else, because the Tao is working at all times. When expectations are shattered, practice allowing that to be the way it is. Relax. Let go. Allow. And recognize that some of your desires are about how you think your world should be, rather than how it is at that moment. Become an astute observer. Judge less and listen more. Take time to open your mind to the fascinating mystery and uncertainty that we all experience. And then, practice letting go of always naming and labeling. The labeling process is what most of us were taught in school. We studied hard to be able to define things correctly in order to get what we called high grades. Most educational institutions insisted on identifying everything, leading to a tag that distinguished us graduates with knowledge of specific categories. Yet we know, without anyone telling us, that there's no title or degree or distinguishing label that truly defines us. In the same way that water is not the word water any more than it is agua, Vaser, or H2O. Nothing in this universe is what it's named. In spite of our endless categorizations, each animal, flower, mineral, and human can never truly be described. In the same way, the Tao tells us that the name that can be named is not the eternal name. We must bask in the magnificence of what is seen and sensed, instead of always memorizing and categorizing. Do the Tao now. At some point today, notice an instant of annoyance or irritation you have with another person or situation. Decide to do the Tao, or practice the way, in that moment by turning inward with curiosity about where you are on the continuum between desire and allowing. Permit the paradox of wanting the irritant to vanish and allowing it to be what it is. Look inward for it in your thoughts and allow yourself to feel it wherever it is and however it moves in your body. Turn all of your attention to becoming open-minded, allowing permissiveness to befriend the mystery within yourself. Notice how the feeling manifests itself, perhaps doing loop-de-loops in your stomach, giving a rigidness to your skeleton, making your heart pound, or tightening your throat. Wherever it is, allow it as an enigmatic messenger within you, and give it non-judgmental attention. Notice the desire for the feeling to disappear, and allow it to be monitored compassionately by you. Accept whatever comes. Encounter the mystery within without labeling, explaining, or defending. It's a subtle distinction at first, which you must take personal responsibility for identifying. You alone can prepare the ground of your being for the experience of living the mystery.